Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds, and as you can see, we're not in my normal studio. I'm back in Manhattan and having a super exciting guest on with me today. This is director Ann Marie Allison. Her indie film, which is incredible. You got it into theaters. You're Dating a Narcissist. She is also, you said, 2 degrees in psychology. The book that came out to accompany the movie, also called You're Dating a Narcissist. So we're going to get into all these things today. As you guys know, currently, we've been on this theme of good girl wounds and the Peter Pan syndrome, so we're continuing that trend. But Ann Marie, welcome to Not the Girl Next Door. I'm so excited that you are here today.
Thank you, Meg. It's so great to meet you.
It's so good to meet you in person. I feel like we've been planning this for so long. But for the people who are not familiar with you and your work, can you just give a little bit of backstory of how you coined Dr. Judy Kaplan? Because you are technically Judy Kaplan.
Well, yes. I mean, so my story is, first of all, I've been writing screenplays and doing film for like 20 years and trying to, make films that I want to go see in the theater, But this particular story, I have to kind of go way back to when I was in my 20s. I met someone while I was in grad school for psychology, by the way, who I felt like was my forever person, my soulmate. We fell madly in love, and 4 months into our relationship, he proposed to me. And I was overwhelmed. Obviously, at 24 or 25 years old, you're just like, this is it. Like, this is going to be my forever person. But I felt like, wow, this has gone really fast. And so I sort of said to him, let's just wait a year. Let's wait a year, and at the end of that year, we'll like announce an engagement and everything. And it was like the first boundary I'd put up with him. And as soon as that happened, it's almost like he flipped a switch and he became a different person. And I just found myself constantly chasing after the feeling I had when I first met him, the connection that I thought we had when I first met him. And then, things came out, lies. I was being gaslit, but I didn't know what that term was.
Yeah.
I was being triangulated with ex-girlfriends and, also women that, we would meet at a restaurant or whatever. It was always all these things were happening. So this is all to say that eventually it got so bad that my friends were the ones that sort of extracted me out of that relationship. And it wasn't until years later when a friend of mine went through a divorce, and her therapist, their marriage counselor, after their first, therapy session, chased her out of the into the parking lot. And while he drove away, she's like, honey, I know this might feel unethical and a little bit, aggressive. She's like, but your husband's a raging narcissist and you need to run. She's like, she has 2 little girls. She's trying to save her marriage. And she's like, no, it will only cause you misery. And when she came back and told me this, I was like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Like, narcissist? Aren't these the people that like look in the mirror a lot or like obsessed with brands or, whatever those issues that we had in our mind? But no, the more she started talking about her relationship and the pattern of treatment that he put her through, I was like relating so hard to what happened to me. And I finally had a light bulb moment where I was like, I didn't just have a bad boyfriend. I dated a narcissist.
Yeah.
And at the time I had been writing, that and all this. And I was like, this is not exactly teaching us the right thing. And so I really felt called to write a screenplay and a movie that tackled this.
Yeah.
And I went to my friend and writing partner at the time, Jenna Milley, who helped me write the script. And I was like, I have to write something about this. Like, I know she was kind of confused, like, what are you talking about? What is this? But I was like, no, I really feel called to do this. I hope you will help me. And she did. And as we, kind of went through the process of writing and rewriting the script, I just felt like I had something here, and that I just really felt compelled to try and get it out into the world, even though like every step of the way, people were like, what is this? What is narcissism? But this was 10 years ago. And so it took a long time to kind of get people to buy in. And now we're here in the age of more social media, more discussion around these topics. And so it's all kind of come together at this like zeitgeist moment, I believe.
Absolutely. And like, obviously that is a big theme in my podcast. And you and I were talking a little bit about my relationship in my early 20s. And I always hesitate to label him a narcissist, but I explicitly remember being driven to be crazy. And, you know, so now when I date, I'm very hesitant and wary of men who, if they first thing out of their mouth about their ex is that she was crazy, I'm like, well, what did you do to make her crazy? Like, what were your actions and behaviors in the relationship that drove her? Because I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer. I just would lose my mind. And literally I felt like I lost my mind. And so when I was watching the movie and starting to read the book, I was like relating so hard to not just the daughter, but to Judy herself, because I watching my friends go through relationships like that, and I'm like, would you just shut up? Would you just listen to me? Like, and so I think there's something to be said there about how it can be years later, but your wounds from those relationships can still be triggered. And I think we saw that with Judy in the movie, like all those patterns kind of coming back out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you think with dealing and healing from narcissism, like where is the line between you're just aware of it now, but versus you're still actually in it and you're still wounded? Like, how do you think someone can process the healing part of it? Because I think maybe that's something that's not talked about enough with healing from narcissism.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, for me, and I can only kind of speak to my journey, but and I also obviously have talked to a lot of people about this over the years, but you know, just having some language around what was kind of driving you crazy. So when you what you were experiencing is psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
When your thoughts and your behaviors do not match, or someone else's thoughts and behaviors do not match, and you're trying to constantly get them into congruence, which is the way we feel safe. It's like you know, based on you know, evolution. Like, we want to feel safe in our environment. So when someone is not making you feel safe, that makes you feel completely dysregulated or AKA crazy. So that's one of the things that I feel like has really helped me, is really learning the psychology behind it. And we can't like diagnose every single person as a narcissist, but people can have narcissistic traits and, you know, personality styles that make it very difficult to connect with them in any kind of real way. But once you kind of see that, and if you're able to like step back and go, okay, this is not me. This person is suffering from, you know, whatever issues that they might have, and you know, in terms of their background, or you know, they're emotionally immature or whatever. Those kinds of things helped me kind of like move past it's me. And I'm crazy, and I'm all the things that he called me, because, and I will also tell you, it's very common too, that the victims of narcissistic abuse are like, and then I went crazy, and then I became the person that they said I was. And it's like, it's such a manipulation tactic.
Right.
And it's so true. It's like, if someone is pushing your buttons, even if it's like passive aggressively, eventually you're going to go, ah!
You're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt in that relationship. And I know so many of my friends have just, I don't know what it is about us as women. I feel like every woman has that one man that even years down the line, if he comes back, he can somehow get under her skin and like somehow just pull you back in, reel you back in. And I always joke we had like a quarterly breakup. Like in a year, we broke up 4 times. Like it was super dramatic. And I think the hardest thing about, and I want your take on this, on my breakup, is, so we broke up 4 times. I broke up with him 4 times because I was like, I can't do this. The 4th and final time we broke up, it was him saying to me, I realized I don't love you. I'm just doing what I have to do to keep you around.
Wow.
And I remember he said that and I was like, what the hell? And then flash forward 6 months, he comes back, wants to be my friends. And I'm like, you said this to me. And he goes, do you have the text? I never said that. And so it's, you know, I was always very hesitant to label him a narcissist because I'm not a psychiatrist. But watching
that guy's a narc. That guy's a narc.
You heard it here first, folks. But it's just, well, I don't know what it is about us as women, especially, that is it because we're not naturally empathetic, but we're raised to be empathetic, so we just attract these avoidance? Like, how do you think, you know, women can, I don't want to say harden themselves, because I never want anyone to be hard if that's not who they necessarily are, but, you know, just protecting your heart a little bit in the earlier stage before you get to that point. Like,
well, it's funny. Like, I feel like we'd be going into sort of like parts work and like loving ourselves and like loving our inner child and loving that little girl that maybe wasn't safe, you know? And when you're a child and you have a parent that is, inconsistent in their love for you, or you don't feel safe, or you're not having your needs met, that is a issue that a child has no recourse. You have to live in that. You have to live in that. That's where, you're being fed and clothed, and you have to live in that situation because you're a child. And so sometimes we get older and we're no longer those children, but we're sort of like adults with these little inner children that are like, well, I don't feel safe here. I don't, or I don't, feel loved. And we sort of think that feels very familiar. And so we're trying to heal that wound through this other person. So, not to sound super cliche, but it's kind of loving yourself first. You will be more narc proof. You really will. If you can just sit with yourself, and find that little girl or that little boy and be like, I'm here for you. I love you. I think you're amazing.
Right.
And I know it's Stuart Smalley, in the mirror,
No, I'm so glad you're saying this, because I say this all the time on the podcast, and I'm like, if they won't listen to me, maybe they'll listen to you.
I mean, and it's uncomfortable to even, especially when you're, a woman who has been raised to be a good girl or perfect or whatever, to be like, I'm going to turn that, caring inward for a little while and see. And so that's really what helped me. And also being able to write about it was really helpful. I really encourage everyone to kind of write their stories and write the logical things. And my therapist used to be like, when I would tell these stories of, this was weird, right? Or this felt weird, she would always just say, what would a normal person do? Instead of thinking about what this person had done and how bizarre that behavior was or how unsettling, think to yourself, what would a normal person, how would they react?
Right.
And I do have a lot of fantastically whole and regulated people in my life. And I would just think about them and go, yeah, that's exactly right.
You're like, oh.
Different. Yeah, it would be, I wouldn't be walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be feeling dysregulated. I wouldn't be confused and in my head thinking about, why did they say this? Why did they do this? That's my number one symptom to people. Whether or not you are dating a narcissist or a narcissistic person, my number one symptom is if you are constantly in your head thinking, why did that person do this, say this, treat me this way, lie to me, whatever that is. If you're constantly in your head, that's a sign that this person has a personality disorder, whether, whatever that may be.
Right.
Anxious, avoidant, all the things that people are throwing around. But I'm just like, how do you feel when you're in this person's presence? Do you feel like your most whole self? Do you feel like you could tackle the world? Do you feel like there's nothing that stands in your way? Or are you scared and kind of worried that you're going to trigger something in this person that makes you feel crappy, you know? So that's kind of my advice on that one.
I want to focus on the film for a second. If I thought it was, I think of the rom-coms of the 2000s because they all follow, that very similar storytelling and formula. And I thought, to me, when I was watching the film, I'm like, this is, yes, a rom-com, but this is about the love of the women that they have for each other, that they're so fiercely protective of each other. And that's what I took away from it, because I look at my friends and how fiercely protective I am of them. And how much, I talked about this on the podcast last week of how so much of our existence as women is helping our female friends through these situations. Yeah. And, it just shows too in the film, even though Judy is this brilliant psychologist and she's clearly raised her daughter with, the warning signs, and her best friend, both the friend and the daughter, they couldn't be done with their narcissist until they hit their breaking point. And I think it's so interesting too, we all have to hit that point where we're just like, I can't do this anymore, that you have that breaking point. And so for people who are maybe considering if they're dealing with narcissists right now, or they're not sure, how do you think you can train yourself to get out of those situations before you have that, oh my God, I can't do this anymore moment? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What a great question. One of the things that I think, looking back, and obviously, a decade of research and writing and trying to get this film made, I look back and I think, where can you maybe forgive yourself for getting into this situation in the first place? Because I think a lot of us carry this shame of and this is one of the reasons why I made Judy a PhD. She's the smartest woman in the room, but she still got bamboozled, right?
She got bamboozled,
Yeah.
and then when another narcissist presented itself, she just fell back into the habits too. And I thought that was such a good like watch to show like no one's immune. No one
Yeah.
is immune, no matter how educated, how healed. Like you can get sucked in.
Yeah, you can. And you know, the more you can maybe just forgive yourself and realize like there's nothing wrong with trying to connect with someone, and there's nothing wrong with trying to love someone. But if you get to a place where that love is not, you know, a positive experience, it's more trauma, it's more, you know, cognitive dissonance, dysregulation, all of those things, that you can feel okay walking away and just saying, I didn't do anything wrong by trying to love this person, and they can tell me I did, you know, and someone else can, you know, because they typically, as soon as you step back, they start, you know, guilt tripping you and doing all the hoovering and things like that, which is very, you know, it's a total mind fuck. So, but yeah, I think like just trying to figure out or forgive yourself for those moments and say there was nothing wrong with me trying to connect with this person.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, I think two things that people crave most in the world is more time and just more love in their life. And connection, I think, is just, again, we're connecting. Like one of the most beautiful things that about being a human and living life is getting to connect with people and share stories and build kind of rapport. But it's just knowing when a connection has served its purpose in your life too. Something I always say that's made dating easier for me, not just dating, but friendships as well, is, you know, recognizing, okay, meant to be doesn't mean meant to last. And like people will come into your life and they're meant to be in your life, but that does not mean they're going to be in your life till the day that you die or until the day that they die. Like, unfortunately, and it just kind of that clicked for me in my brain of accepting when things naturally end and not feeding into my anxious attachment, like, no, don't go, like, all that stuff. But, you know, the rom-coms of the 2000s that we were raised on, it's like, they lied to us about what relationships look like. They're not supposed to be these big fights and stuff like that. So when you were writing the film and obviously writing the book, was that kind of at the forefront of your mind a little bit of thinking back on all the rom-coms that raised an entire generation of women?
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, I want to write this film and I want to try and make this film. Because it's one thing, you know, I have lots of scripts that never got made, but like to actually take that script and move it into like production is like it's a whole nother, you know, step in the process. But for me, I wanted to put something out there that I wish I had when I went through my my relationship with this person. And it would have just been so helpful to understand a little bit more about like, lying to someone, like, you know, a lot of the rom-coms that talk about true love and make us feel, you know, that huge romantic
The
joy.
love conquers all.
All of that. And truly, like, you know, I don't want to take away from that because I do feel like there is an element of truth to that, but you have to just be a little smarter about the person that is using those kind of techniques and tools, because I did end up, you know, moving on from my narcissistic ex, and then I met a man who is a total gem, and he's my best friend, and like all of those things are true, but he also treats me with immense respect, and you know, he's, you know, somebody that has the ability to self-reflect and it doesn't get triggered, and all the things that you want in that kind of relationship. So like, you know, one of the things about modern day rom-coms, and I think a lot of people do see through that, is that a lot of the protagonists have these issues that are really quite significant, and then they basically, the storyline is, if you love them hard enough, you will fix them. And so all of us are doing that. We're like, well, we're going to just love this. We're going to love this crap out of this person. And we're going to talk to them about it. And we're going to like work on it. And we're going to do this and this and this. And all of that's like great to a certain point until your light starts getting diminished. But like, so I would say like in the book, I did what I called a Judy rant, about Hollywood rom-coms, you know, and like, the kinds of like things that we're seeing, but you know, the book is what I call like a sassy self-help book. Like you would hand this to your friend who's going through a bad breakup with like a, you know, I was going to say some vanilla ice cream or like a bottle of whiskey, and be like, here, have a little laugh. And,
like they need a little bit of a tough love that they can swallow.
Yeah, a little tough love. I mean, there's obviously more psychology-based self-help books out there, but Judy Kaplan's is a little bit more fun.
It's a little bit more digestible for the people who don't want to hear all the psychological terms. They just want to know, like, I'm not crazy.
They just want their mama bear in their corner.
Yes.
That's what I think. Yeah.
And I think sometimes, too, like, that goes a long way of just someone saying, you're not crazy. Like, this is not normal. And I'm I was 22 when we broke up. So, yeah, I'm about 5 years removed from almost a full 5. And there's sometimes I can still, in my mind, when I'm navigating day now, like, hear his little voice of, like, you're crazy, you're being dramatic, you're being this, you're that. And it's crazy how those, again, it has a grasp on you through your whole life. And we see that with Judy it seems like she's never been fully able to let go of her narcissist. And, I think there's something to say there of how there's a difference, I think, between healing and like actually still holding on to the wounds. And I don't know if that was an intentional choice on your part when writing her character, but.
Well, I definitely felt like she needed to have a change, like she had to start somewhere, somewhere, and she needed to have an enlightenment. She needed to have a positive change in her life because, that's what storytelling is, especially like comedy is about, this human problem solving. Yeah. And so this is the biggest problem in her life. She's clearly obsessed with it. She's written a book about it. She teaches classes about it. And then, the one thing that came out of her marriage that I think she's truly, truly proud of and loves so much and is such a gem, and the reason that she maybe keeps her shame at bay is Eva, her daughter. And so to love Eva and to make sure Eva's safe and kind and with someone kind is her whole focus. Yeah. But at the same time, I think there's an element of that, as when I was writing it, is like she's almost talking to her own inner child and protecting her own self, like trying to say, no, don't do this, this could ruin you. Yeah. But then there's a learning curve there about that, which I won't give, all the
no spoilers.
All the spoilers. I mean, but yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when I was writing the script. Yeah.
That's amazing. And obviously, I think that's a big thing, too, for mothers, like kind of living through their daughters. And I remember, too, I had a relationship in college, which he was not a narcissist. He's a great guy. He just wasn't my guy. And I always say that him breaking my heart was the best thing that ever happened to me. It kind of launched me on a path that I would have held myself back for the sake of that relationship. And again, that would have been my own thing. But I remember, again, my mom, this is the backstory of my parents. I told you my father's a sociopath, but my mom and him eloped after 8 months.
Oh, wow.
He was gone at sea for 7 of those months because he was in the Navy.
Okay.
So, like, my mom, I grew up thinking it was this, like, fairy tale. I thought they met, they fell in love, they knew that they were the one for each other, but really looking, I'm like, oh, you kind of got love bombed, girl. Like my dad's proposal was, want to get married today? Sure. And they went down to a courthouse in Florida, got married in jeans and a t-shirt, and had to swear that they weren't siblings. Like,
oh, wow.
So I thought, again, but growing up, I thought it was this like fairy tale love story. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh no, Mom, what did you do? She got me out of it. But I think that's such a big thing for mothers to kind of live through their daughters. And, when we broke up, my college relationship and I broke up, she goes, I loved him so much. She was like, but I'm so glad you didn't end up with him. She was like, I didn't want that for you. I didn't want you to. I'm like, where the hell was this years ago? You know what I mean? But I think that it's, a natural thing for mothers to want their daughters to not make the same mistakes that they did. And we really see that dynamic play out. But once again, Eva had to learn on her own, and she had to experience it for herself. And I love the parallels of them exhibiting the same behaviors and things like that. Also, 22 and 29, diabolical age gap.
Right.
Oh my God. Can you talk about that choice too, of why you chose to make, because it would have been so easy for them to be both 22.
Yeah.
Do you think that him being 29 kind of was an intentional choice, or talk to me a little bit about that thought process?
That was just like kind of based on my own experience, because I was in my 20s, my mid 20s, and he was older. He was in his 30s. And I just think it was just part of my, my DNA of the story, and that there was a certain, power shift there as well. He was established, he had a business and all the things, and I was a student, and, so there was some of that at play. and so that was an intentional choice in the story, but it doesn't mean it has to happen that way. You could be older than the person, whatever. But yeah, that was one of the reasons why.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was going to be my next question is if you think age gap relationships tend to lead to sort of narcissistic dynamics, because I think that's obviously such a hot topic nowadays. There was literally just a reality TV show about where they've made couples of age gap relationships, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know about that. I would say the only thing that makes a narcissistic relationship is a narcissist. So if they're older and they have narcissistic traits, then that's going to be really rough.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about narcissism, though, in general, is as you go through different stages of development, little toddlers are little narcissists, right? They just want what they want. If they get their toy taken away, they cry. They lie. They steal stuff. They don't want to do what they're told. All the things. I didn't do that. I don't know. All of that. And so there's natural stages of this kind of ego, the way you want to protect your ego and grow. But it's the parents' job to kind of guide you through that, and to teach you how to relate to others. If you don't have those things, then it can make trouble down the road. But
right. No, that makes perfect sense. And so when you were also obviously which came first for you, the screenplay or the book? Did you always know you wanted to release them in tandem? Or?
No, it's a great question. So the screenplay took
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years to write. Well, it also took a good, because there was the first draft of the screenplay was something a little bit different, but over time I just was getting more educated about kind of what I wanted to do, and also I was writing other things, so I honed my own craft, too, because I was kind of a young writer when I first started this, but so I wrote the script and then I rewrote it to be more of Judy's story, to focus on her, because as I got into it, I was like, I think this is what I think the story is. So that took some time to just understand what you're writing, and that is very typical for a lot of writers. You don't know what you're writing until you've written it. You know what I mean? And so then we went through the process of making the film and getting it produced, which was I could talk about that for a whole another couple hours, but just to say that we were so lucky. We got it all together. We were shooting the film, and my art director came to me with the prop, the book, You're Dating a Narcissist, which was always in the script, just that she had written this book. And I was looking at the book, and I was also watching Sherry Cola's character, flip through it and be like, red flag, and all this. And I was thinking, God, I should write that book. That would be a really fun, kind of companion piece to the film. But it also allowed me to sort of get all of all the things I've learned over the last decade out on the page, but through Judy Kaplan's voice, who it really became my way of kind of healing my own wound about, narcissism in my life. Because once you kind of discover it, then you start seeing other things in your life that maybe people aren't, as, on your side as you thought they were or whatever. And, so you're narcissism can be in various, people have parents and, friends and lovers, but bosses and coworkers and all those things started coming out. So I just was I would love to write this book and kind of get it all down. And it was a great exercise for me, especially as I was waiting to see if we would get distribution, because it's getting harder and harder and harder for indie film to get made. And it's really a marathon, trying to get it to the theaters, and we were lucky enough to get a deal and do that,
Which is incredible. And I loved that the book was really just Judy Kaplan coming to life. I thought that was so unique, and I have not seen that before. So I think it was such a great way to combine, everything you've learned, and also obviously the fictionalization of everything. But with writing both the script and the book, what you mentioned, healing your own wounds, what were things that, kind of got brought up for you that maybe you thought you had moved past, and you're like, oh, this is kind of still affecting me? Because I think, too, people forget that it can be years down the line, and it's okay if something still affects you. It's okay if you have that moment where you kind of feel that feeling again, and you don't have to feel shame about it, because I think we all as people think, oh, I moved past it, I have to be done with it, I can never talk about it again. And it's that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, it was triggering. There were things when I was writing it, I was like, whoa. And I put my personal story at the very end of the book, about what happened to me, as quickly as I could. But like, and there were things that I was like, oh man, I forgot that happened. I forgot I did that. Oh geez, I'm so embarrassed. So yes, absolutely, there were triggering things. I also interviewed a lot of people that were sort of supportive to me throughout this process and got their stories and kind of then filtered those through Judy Kaplan's eyes. Like she has actual client stories that are real stories of friends and colleagues of mine who shared their stories. Of course, names have been changed, but so that was really interesting and to hear people kind of like go through their experience. But something you said earlier really I thought was really interesting, where you said sometimes I still hear his voice and those things. And so when I'm writing it down and I'm like, oh, and this is another insult that this person gave, weird, strange insults, right? And
like
you're
the little digs, you're like, huh?
Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. But one of the things that my therapist, and I thought this was really just helpful, and so I'll share it with everybody, but she was like, that voice in your head is really not his voice. It's your voice. You're the only one here doing this. So you're the one that is saying you're crazy and things like that. So she was like, personify it. And I made it into this little green gremlin in my head that she's like, you're just going to sit him right here. And even though they're like having a tantrum and they're being annoying and whatever, you're going to be like, it's okay, buddy. I got you. Like just to like say that's our little anxiety gremlin that we all carry around with us, that inner critic, that inner voice, to somehow put some attention on that little voice and love it and say it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, even if I am crazy, it's going to be okay. Like whatever you're saying, because you're fighting me so hard.
Right.
And so that's been very helpful. I mean, like I really personify my anxiety now. Like even if I'm like in the grocery store and I'm thinking about like some deal that didn't happen or whatever, I'm getting all of my anxiety. I was like, oh, there's the little anxiety gremlin. And then I just take him and I put him in the little front seat, like in my mind. I'm like, you're going to sit here and I'm going to shop now and I'm going to get some healthy food. I'm not going to get myself like a big roll of Oreos because you're telling me that this isn't going to work out or whatever.
Right.
So it's like trying to recognize that voice and love it.
Yeah.
Like, even though it's like, everything against you.
Because it's part of you.
Yes, it's part of you. Yeah.
You have to take the good with the bad. And I think we as people I think especially in today's age of social media, there's this emphasis also on self-improvement and being in touch with ourselves and our mental health. And I'm like, so many of us are just performing that, though. Yeah. We're not actually embodying it and living it. And I think, that does probably breed for people dealing with narcissists in their relationships, because it's the pretty picture in the window. It's the everything's perfect looking, but deep down on the inside, we're just not actually connecting with ourselves.
Yeah, you gotta love yourself first. You gotta put that, as they say, the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Oh, that's such a good analogy for it. I love that. And something I talk about too, I've talked about this too. I've talked about, I call it a crock pot relationship versus a microwave relationship. So microwave relationships, I say, are the ones that people want it. It's the love bombing. It's the instantaneous. Like, especially in modern dating, everyone just wants everything now. Right. Like, we don't want to go through the slow burn, like a good crock pot recipe. Yeah. And so I think when I was watching the film and reading the book, it connected with that for me, because a lot of the times it's the love bombing, and for you, you got engaged after 4 months. And so how do you think, obviously there's exceptions to every single rule, but for the most part, do you think for the most part, if it's a relationship that's too quick, there's going to be an element of narcissism? Or how do you think people can differentiate of, we just really clicked and we're in love and this is great, versus I should be wary of this?
Yeah. Actually, no, I'm a huge believer in love and, just getting swept away and being madly in love with someone.
I love being a hopeless romantic.
I love that. I say the key is, how does this person deal with any kind of conflict? Because the one thing about like the honeymoon period is that there's not a lot of conflict right then, but you will eventually have something where either you don't see eye to eye on something or somebody does something else. And is this person able to come to the table and state their needs in a mature way and say, this is feel good to me because XYZ. And you're able to say, you know what, I see you, I hear you, and okay, I understand, and I won't do that again, or what have you, whoever is doing that. And they actually don't do it again.
Yeah.
Like everybody makes mistakes. Everybody
Right.
has bad days. Everybody gets angry. You have to accept every single emotion. Like even narcissism, because we all have a little bit of it, right? Otherwise we wouldn't get up, we wouldn't brush our teeth, we wouldn't
Wouldn't take care of ourselves.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, hey, how do people think I look? Like you'd be a monk, like somewhere, or I don't want to earn a lot of money, or I don't want these nice clothes. Like all of that is a little bit around, having this like egocentric, viewpoint.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not taking that out on someone else
Right.
and projecting all your bullshit onto somebody else and making them feel like crap about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like I say, I'm a huge, fan of true love and falling in love. I love Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorites. I watch it every like rainy afternoon, and I love watching Elizabeth Bennet fall in love with Mr. Darcy. I mean, every single time they overcome their prejudices and their pride to fall in love, and that's really a lovely thing. And so I would never want to take that away from people. I would just say like be a little smarter about those signs when you start to feel less like yourself.
Yeah.
The cognitive dissonance, that's a really big one for me. It's like that feeling of like feeling dysregulated and obsessive thinking and spinning about somebody.
Right.
So, and that happens when people lie. A lot of times narcissists do lie. They do big lies, little lies, like bizarre fabrications. They live in a delusion almost of something that never even happened.
It's really the definition of they live in their own world and they think the world revolves around them.
Yeah, they do. Or it's like you said, I never said that. I didn't do that. I don't remember that. And you're like, this really hurt me.
Yeah.
And you don't even remember it. Like, and we can't even talk about it. We can't even talk about how to maybe approach it in a different way and like to preserve our relationship. So it's just like never even happened. And then, it's so, it makes you crazy.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And I'm like, you know what? If I feel like I'm becoming a crazy bitch, then I'm out. Because I'm like, that's not who I am.
You're like, I want whoever I end up with to make me the best version of myself. So if you're making me anything but then this isn't right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And something I always say on the podcast is I say every week this podcast is a dose of tough love. Like we're going to give you some hard truths and say some shit that you need to hear and you probably don't want to hear, but I'm going to tell you anyways. So as a new member of the Tough Love Club, what do you think is a little piece of tough love people don't like hearing about dealing with narcissists and recovering from narcissists, but you think is one of the most important things to know?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I guess the hard truth of it is you're not changing anybody but yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. You're not changing anybody. No one is going to, you're not going to be able to love somebody to change or yell at somebody to change or to withhold your affection to change them. The only person you have any control over is yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a relationship and you are the narcissist and you're withholding your love for this person to love you the right way or whatever, they're never going to do it. And vice versa, if you are the person who's in a relationship with a narcissist, they're never going to change, and you're never going to change them.
Yeah. So
give up the fight. Let it go. That would be my tough love bit.
I love that. It's a perfect bit of tough love. And something with that too, have you, when you were researching or, asking for stories for people, did you come across anyone that they're like, I wonder if I'm the narcissist in relationships?
Everybody I've ever talked to who's been in a relationship with a narcissist asks that question at some point. Of course, I ask myself the same thing.
I did too. And my therapist, she was like, most of the time, she's like, narcissists don't really consider that they're narcissists. Yeah. She's like, you're fine.
Yeah.
But why do you think that is, that people who are dealing with narcissists are like, wait, is it me? Am I the narcissist? Like, it's such a buzzword now.
Yeah. Well, I think because it is so much in the zeitgeist, I'm not sure it's true anymore that narcissists don't ask because they've heard it now.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, maybe. But I think at the time, I was always like, well, is it me? Like, what have I done? Oh, I just asked him to be honest, or I wish I told him it bothered me when he lied, or I told him it bothered me when he gave me the silent treatment, those were the things that I was doing. But I was like, well, maybe I'm the narcissist because I don't, let him have his space if he needs his space, like, or whatever. Like, and so I feel like we do that because just we over function in those relationships, and we have so much, we want to connect. We have a lot of empathy. I mean, I was in a helping profession. I was trying to become a psychologist to help people. And, then I had this person who at first I was like, I love you. I'm in love with you. And now that I love you, I want to help you. Of course I want to help you. But there's a part of that you have to realize that, and this is probably a little bit of that tough love too, is like to stay and to try and help them out of it to a certain point is almost, it's almost like, well, I'm the special one that can help them, change. And there's a little bit of hubris in that, And so then I'd be like, well, maybe I'm a, prideful narcissist because I was trying to like, all that. And usually one of the great signs of not being a narcissist when you're in a narcissistic relationship is look around and look at your other relationships. Look at your relationships with your friends. Like, do you have some good long-term friendships? If the narcissist happens to be your parent, do you have relationships with other people who could be mentors to you that aren't, your parent, but like you have a good relationship with them? Like, look around and see. Usually narcissistic people have very shallow, like only within the last couple of years relationships. They don't really know the narcissist very well. Like, I can remember my guy saying like, I don't have really good longtime friends. And even I was like, what about your college friends? He's like, I talk to them occasionally, but I never met these college friends. Like he would be like, yeah, I've got this college friend. I was like, well, where is this guy?
Yeah, like,
is
he imaginary?
Yeah. And then there was like issues between his parents, and there was issues between his siblings, and like
everyone else is always the problem.
Yes. And so like that was another comfort to me, is that I had lifelong friends, and lifelong, my brothers, I have 3 brothers who are amazing guys, and, we get along great, and they have beautiful wives and beautiful families, and I see that. And so I was like, yeah, that's not what I have here. So, and the other thing is, I even got to a point where I was like, okay, so I'm the narcissist. Okay. Like, fine. But I don't have to be in this relationship anymore. And as soon as I got away from him, I was like, oh, that was a very bizarro world. You're living in bizarro world with them, It's just,
it's like a Disney movie if it was the villain's world.
Yeah, well, I always say that. I was like, when I figured out this whole narcissism, I was like, I thought these people only existed in Disney movies, like Jafar, singing a song about himself and like trying to burn people
talking
alive.
In a third person.
And I was like, no, these are people that are walking around amongst us. And I, at 10 years ago when I was doing this, there wasn't a TikTok, there wasn't social media. It wasn't until like COVID, and I was like stuck inside, and I was watching YouTube videos, and I discovered Dr. Ramani. We talked briefly about her, and I was like, oh wow, maybe I have something here, because there's other people out here dealing with this, and it was finally validating to see that maybe there were other people that could be helped by this content, this movie, the book, and just talking about it. And that feels good. That does, that my story, even though I would never ask or want anybody to go through something like that, that at the other side of it, that you're stronger and you've kind of are more in your own skin.
Yeah.
And I've seen that not only with my own experience, but with many of my friends who have.
Yeah, and I can relate to that too. Like I always say, and it's also a thing of I never want that up for anybody, but if my story helps someone else navigate theirs, then it's like, okay, maybe it was worth it a little bit. Like maybe.
But look at you. I mean, look at everything you're doing. Like,
thank you.
Like I would always be like, would you have done this?
No, and that's it. I mean, literally, I always joke the 2 things I got out of that relationship were therapy and a podcast. So.
Right?
So thanks, see ya. I'm good.
And I got therapy in a book.
Exactly. Yeah. Go us.
Yeah.
We're killing it. But so one last question. Obviously, people should watch the movie and buy the book because it's fantastic. But who do you think needs it the most? Like, if someone is considering watching it, like, what do you envision your ideal reader and your ideal, person watching, and what do you want them to take away from this?
Well, gosh, I feel like the ideal person is probably somebody that has gone through it themselves and is on the other side and is able to maybe, watch it and laugh a little bit and feel a little lighter. There's certainly people that are right in the middle of something that was different than mine. I was not in a violent relationship.
Yeah.
That's a whole different
Experience,
enchilada,
yeah.
But like just to laugh and connect and, come out with a little bit of hope at the end of it is probably my ideal audience member, but I'm just thrilled that there are people who haven't been and that are enjoying it or saying, I'm sending this to my friend.
Like,
or,
this reminded me of her.
Or I
yeah.
learned something about it. And a person who is going through it is like, feels a little bit more seen because sometimes you feel like you're all alone in it and no one believes you, or they're like, this person's fantastic. What are you talking about? I mean, when I started telling my mom about some of the things, she was like, well, he's so this and that, and I was like, finally telling her specifics, and she was like, oh my God, I never knew this, but like everybody's sort of like all living, to serve this person or to live in their sort of version of themselves, and so it can be really, tough and kind of lonely. So maybe just feeling a little bit more connected and seen would be great.
I love that. That was perfect. And for people who maybe want to find you on social media or where can they buy the book? Like what is the information that people need to know?
Well, you're dating a narcissist.com has everything about the movie and you can order the book. And we even have the wonderful artist Maggie O'Neill. She's out of Washington, D.C. She's a friend of mine. She runs a nonprofit called Vote for Your Daughter. She's amazing. She did all the art in the film.
Wow.
So we worked with her. So like the final piece of art that Eva is working on is also available on yourdatinganarcissist.com. But you can also find the book on Amazon and things like that, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so glad we got to do this in person and not virtually. This is amazing.
Here in Manhattan.
Here in Manhattan, and I hope, again, hopefully you never meet another narcissist in your life, but you probably will walk past 5 today on the streets.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, but we all now have a toolbox of things to deal with.
Precisely. Precisely.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, guys, for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Subscribe on YouTube. Please go watch the film and purchase the book. I'm currently almost done with it, and it's really, honestly, such a fun read. So I love it. But I will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye for now.